What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here for our Showdown preview for round 2 at the PGA Championship. Gonna do this in a quicker format, more of like a video format. Now, if there are any questions or comments down in chat, any deep dives you want me to do, as always, feel free to go ahead and put those down below. With that being said, gonna hop right into it. So first off, a review of round 1, just to get an idea of how today played. And really, in general, there were no surprises. We knew this was going to be an extremely difficult golf course. We also expected the morning to be slightly easier than the afternoon wave. Now, not quite as pronounced as what we thought early in the week, and really the numbers back all that up, right? Between the morning and the afternoon wave, you were looking at right around a shot difference. Now, I thought it would be maybe in the 0.7, 0.8 shot range, but either way, right, pretty close to what we were expecting there. And for tomorrow, it's going to be the opposite, right? Early in the week, we identified that Friday morning was going to be especially a little bit of a windy morning, and that is certainly still the case. So if we head over to the wind finder over here, you'll see in the morning, there are more sustained winds in the 15 to 20 mile an hour range and 30 to 45 miles an hour of wind gusts. I mean, that's twice what we saw this afternoon, and that resulted in a scoring average of plus 3.3. So with even harder conditions tomorrow, and something I'll mention too, is the reason why the morning wave played a little bit easier was due to the receptiveness of the greens. I mean, when we were watching early in the morning, I know a lot of you out there probably noticed this too, it looked relatively easy. Like early on, it was like, wow, like this golf course does not look that difficult. So for the first, let's say 2, maybe 2.5 hours, I felt that way. I was like, wow, I was wrong about this golf course. I really thought I was. And then slowly but surely, the teeth came back into the golf course. And little did I know, I don't think many people knew this out there, it rained there last night. A storm came in out of nowhere, right? Put a little bit of moisture on the golf course. Now, it wasn't even 1/10 of an inch. So it wasn't much rain to speak of, but you saw the effect on the ground. Obviously, it was a little bit more receptive than most times, at least what we expected for this golf course. Tomorrow, that will not be the case. There is no precipitation in the weather, pretty much 0% no matter what forecast you're looking at for the Tulsa area. So that type of effect should not be there for tomorrow. So it's going to start off pretty close to a plus 3.3 average. Then you factor in this wind, the wind gusts, the fact that it's probably still going to be just as difficult when it comes to the pin locations. We could very easily see a plus 4, maybe even plus 4.5 scoring average by the end of tomorrow. Would not surprise me, because even in the afternoon wave, first off, there's some rain in the forecast, right? So that could throw things off. We saw what can happen at the Wells Fargo Championship when these players have to actually play through with the rain, and you still have sustained winds, right? It's still 10 to 15 miles an hour for pretty much the entire day. The wind gusts are still a lot higher than what we saw today. So in terms of a test, if you thought today was tough, tomorrow is going to be even tougher. And in terms of a cut line projection, now I'll just show you what Data Golf has. I don't really agree with it. They have it in the plus 3 to plus 5 range. I would put it in the plus 4 to plus 6 range. In fact, probably more likely towards the plus 5 to plus 6 end of that spectrum. So we'll have to see what ends up happening for tomorrow's slate, but certainly a relatively high scoring major, right? Kind of like what I like to see. You know, I mentioned that I like seeing some difficult scoring conditions, and that is certainly what we've gotten to this point. So heading into the projection side of things, I can see we have Nick Marsh down in chat. What is going on? Daily tees off in the PM. He is teeing off in the PM, but he's not a core pick. Oh boy, for him birdieing the first hole today, for anybody on Prize Picks, how epic was that, right? So just, you know, he hit it in there, the 2 feet. He almost holed out with his iron shot. And of course, the line was 0.5 birdie. So didn't hate to see that at all. We got Starlord down in chat. What is going on? He says he is looking forward to my opinions. So appreciate that. Hopefully we can win some cash here for Friday's slate and head into the weekend with a high note, right? That doesn't always suck. Alrighty, so now let's talk about the player pool, right? We know that the weather in the morning is going to be really nasty. And as a result, other than Justin Thomas, every single player in the field that is playing in the morning is a no for me. And the only reason I'm playing Justin Thomas is in the afternoon wave today, in windy conditions, he was the only player up top that even looked remotely effective. I mean, outside of him, it was guys like a Webb Simpson. He looked pretty decent. Guys like a Lucas Herbert. He was playing some decent golf. Joaquin Niemann. There was like one other guy under par. Outside of that, every other player this afternoon struggled mightily. I mean, you're talking about, you know, a sub 5% ceiling rate from the afternoon wave. Whereas in the morning, right, guys like Rory McIlroy went low. You had multiple guys take it to 2-3 under par. It was a lot more gettable than the afternoon. So you can see just a shot difference in terms of the scoring average, right, between one wave versus the other leads to maybe a 10 to 15% change in terms of the actual ceiling rate. So that's why, even though it still will be difficult tomorrow afternoon, I really am hunkering down on it. I mean, in the morning, it's going to suck to be out there. If you guys remember the Players' Championship, where they ended up having to stop the round and they came back out there on Saturday, we had similar 30 to 40 mile an hour wind gusts. The scoring average was like plus 5.5. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but it was up there. And of course, there's a lot of water on that golf course, so that adds into a lot of that volatility. But you're still talking about an extremely difficult test with Southern Hills Country Club, right? This isn't a resort-style golf course where you can get away with having those 25 to 30 mile an hour winds. So the only guy I'm willing to get to is JT because he showed the ability to get through those conditions. And in the past, has also shown that ability. So, he's kind of immune to the conditions, I like to say. And he's the only guy I'm really taking a shot on because outside of that, every other yes I have in the poll is going to be teeing up after noon, at least Eastern time tomorrow. So they'll have the favorable conditions compared to the rest of the field. And the one guy I'm not playing, so let's just talk about the fade right now, is Rory McIlroy. And I get it, right? He played super well. Right? He's playing in the afternoon wave. The issue is I have him at 35% projected ownership. And that might be low, right? In smaller field contests, single entries, or especially higher dollar contests, you're looking at 45 to maybe 50% plus ownership on Rory McIlroy. And my pure strategy for tomorrow, guys, is I'm just going to play all the guys in the PM wave. In fact, I'm going to enter 50 lineups. Usually I'm only a 20 maxer here for Showdown. And I'm just going to spam enter a bunch of different combinations, a bunch of different permutations of players for the afternoon wave. Have a few lineups with Justin Thomas. And the real only thinking or, real game theory aspect I'm incorporating is I'm just blindly fading Rory McIlroy. That right there should make my lineups unique. So I can still target the chalky wave, which is going to be the afternoon wave. And like I said, just spam lineups. Like I'm going to enter a lot more lineups tomorrow than I would for most slates, because when we have such a distinct morning versus afternoon wave advantage, or I should say in this case, it gets its PM over AM wave advantage, it's usually the most profitable Showdown slate. It's what I try to take advantage of. And that is only going to be even more so the case this week, given the amount of casuals that are playing golf DFS this week and the amount of casuals that are just going to tilt enter for their Showdown lineups. It's something for pretty much every slate, right? You have a lot of the people that just tilt enter, don't really put all that much research into their Showdown process, but especially so in weeks like this. So that's going to be the strategy. So I'm going to talk through the player pool, but it's going to be abbreviated. I mean, it's going to be the same argument, right? They're a good skill set fit and they're playing in the afternoon wave. So we're not going to hunker down on the afternoon wave stuff. Just every player identified, just know that they are playing at the good wave. And of course, over here on the left, you have the tag for that. That'll be readily apparent, but let's talk about him. So Jordan Spieth, he was excellent off the tee. In fact, gained over a stroke off the tee. The approach play was a slight negative. Around the green, he was right around a neutral, and he lost with the putter. That ended up resulting in right around a neutral day, right? He shot just slightly better than the average for the field. So he was a gainer, but it was all off the tee. And if you know Jordan Spieth's game, that's not how he gets it done, right? It's usually the approach play and the putting. So if he can continue the off the tee play, which he's done for the last 3 to 4 events, he's gained over 3 strokes on approach in 3 of his last 4 starts. That's intriguing to me because the approach play should be there. That's what he historically does the best. And the putter, we know how hot Jordan Spieth can get. So I know 2 over par was slightly disappointing, maybe less so now that, we saw the PM wave play and we know how difficult this golf course really is. But tomorrow, with slightly more benign conditions, he needs to make a move, right? To get into contention, he probably got to shoot something like 2 to 3 under par tomorrow. I would imagine the winning score, as long as Rory doesn't go nuclear tomorrow. I should say, like, if you just took Rory McIlroy out of the entire lineup right now, out of the entire event, I would assume the winning score tomorrow would be like 2 or 3 under par. I think it's going to go backwards in a big way. It's going to start to go towards over par potentially, like I was saying towards the beginning of the week, unless Rory takes it super low, right? He's the one X factor. If Rory takes it to 3-4 under par tomorrow, and that is entirely possible, he could be winning by 5 to 6 shots come Saturday. That's the one scary thing I'll say. If you don't have Rory McIlroy in your foreign lineups, I do. Again, he was a sleeper pick. I have a ton of him. He might be running away with this thing after tomorrow. Would not surprise me. Now, in Showdown, I hope that doesn't happen, right? I'm fading him for tomorrow's slate. Just telling you that is a possibility, though. So Guys like Jordan, right? They're 2 over par. They're not out of it. They shoot something in that 3 to 4 under par range. Could be up there in the top 5 come the end of tomorrow. Cameron Smith at $9,200. He started off really rough. Actually, he made a birdie before he bogeyed, but he made a bogey, then a double bogey, and completely rallied to take it down to 2 under par. And at one point was 3 under. So birdies were flying for Cameron Smith today. So if he can just, clean up that sloppy play, not miss quite as wildly off the tee, could put up another solid performance. And today his performance was good enough. I mean, all those birdies he made, he was by far one of the most optimal plays he could have taken. Victor Hovland, I don't love for 4-round stuff, but he shot even par today. A lot of it was due to the putter. I mean, he was hitting a lot of greens, which for Victor Hovland, if he's going to shoot a solid score around here, he's going to need to hit 14 or 15 plus greens regulation, because it was apparent every time he was missing greens, you could tell he was holding his breath out there. And he got up and down a lot today, which impressive. He doesn't do that all that often. I don't want him relying on that. So he's a high upside, also high risk play because of the around the green play. But if he can keep himself out of trouble, he always has a ceiling round in him, right? That's something I have to give Victor Hovland. For as much crap as I give him for his woes around the green, which is deserving, he needs to figure that out to really take his game to the next level. He certainly has the upside in him, though. Xander Schauffele had a good start. He's 2 under par, playing in the afternoon. You guys know the deal. Looked solid on Sunday last week, Saturday last week. In fact, half of his round on Friday at the Byron Nelson. Xander Schauffele was arguably the best player in the field. So I like the momentum that he's coming in with, and the price tag, $8,600. What is Draftkings doing? This is a common thing I talk about here on these streams, is the Draftkings pricing algorithm is just broken. Makes absolutely no sense at times. And the Xander Schauffele price here, $8,600, is a perfect example of that, right? He was $9,300, $9,400 to begin the week. He was relatively chalky. He was right around 23, 24% owned in contests, and he was 2 under par when they came out with pricing. So why did they lower his price as much as they did, right? It just makes no sense. That aside, rant aside, that is a price tag to take advantage of. Will Zalatoris, I like him there. He's a little bit chalky, but because we're fading Rory McIlroy, you can probably play Will Zalatoris. And it was the putter today. I mean, the ball striking is what we'd expect from Willie Z, right? Gaining off the tee, gaining on approach. He was just making every putt, all these 15 to 20 footers all day. Now, he's unlikely to do that tomorrow, but a ceiling performance can be 1 to 2 under par, right? We don't need a ceiling putter when it comes to Showdown. Typically, it is one of the more important aspects of a game that I'm looking for, but not this time around. It's all about the ball striking, all about keeping yourself in position. Sam Burns shot 1 over, which is also surprising. He's kind of in the same boat to a Victor Hovland, where he's a very high risk but high reward play, where he's got to hit 14 to 15 greens to go out there and have a respectable performance. But if he does, right, he's capable of taking this to 4 or 5 under par tomorrow, having the best round of the day. So he's highly volatile. Make sure you understand that before playing a Sam Burns. He could definitely burn you tomorrow, hence the name there, but could also end up going nuclear and going 5 or 6 under par. Max Homa, he's complaining about allergies, which I was saying in the chat, I don't know, maybe he's just stoned out there or something, because you could see on his face, like he looked like he was stoned. I'm sure it was just allergies, right? I'm joking and whatnot, but yeah, hopefully he plays well tomorrow. His ball striking early on was on point. He was really hitting a lot of fairways, hitting a lot of greens. I liked what I was seeing from him, even if he's dealing with quote unquote allergies out there. Catch Me If You Can says Potter would have lit this course up in these conditions. Yeah, I mean, 5, 6 under par at the very least for Ted Potter Jr. And Catch Me If You Can says Rory averaged 374 yards with the driver and gained over 3 strokes putting. Yeah, exactly. That's why he's in the lead right now. Not surprising, to be honest with you. And the drives, it's so much rollout. I mentioned that we might see 20 to 30 yards of rollout during my course breakdown. 40 to 50 yards, actually. What was I thinking, right? With the usual 20 to 30 yard distance, they're trampolines out there. Now, we would have no way of knowing that, but they're getting 40 to 50 yards of run out. I mean, yeah, they're flying at like 320, 330 yards. I saw Thomas Peters hit a ball 408 yards today. That was on hole number 1, his first hole of the golf tournament. He hit it for over 400 yards. Matt Fitzpatrick hit one 396 today. So it's not just Rory. Everyone's doing that, to be fair. But yeah, it's pretty crazy, some of the driving stats. And Barrier Bar says Hovland tomorrow. Yeah, I agree. I do like Hovland tomorrow. I think he has the high upside play there. All right, so let's talk about the 7K range. So I like Tony Finau. He ball strikes the crap out of it today. Of course, with him, it comes down to the putter. But like I said, when a ceiling performance is going to be something like 2, maybe 3 under par tomorrow, that's okay. I'm okay with guys having a little bit of a cold putter. Terrell Hatton was smiling today. He was joking on the golf course. I told you guys, he loves hard golf courses. For whatever reason, when everyone else is frustrated, Terrell Hatton's the happiest guy on the planet. And you could see that today. He was laughing out there on the golf course. That makes him an even better play. He was just a good play per the stats to begin with. Gary Woodland played a really respectable round, even par today in the morning. Gets the easier conditions tomorrow afternoon. Same thing with Alex Noren, also shot even par, gets the easier conditions. Mito Pereira looks like the back injury is behind him. I was a little bit hesitant in 4-round stuff. Only played him in 9% of lineups because I wasn't really sold on the injury, right? He had to withdraw from the team event, which that was actually after the first round. It's not like it was pre-event or something like that, which is always a little bit concerning, right? Because if you withdraw after you start, right, it means a lot more than if you withdraw before an event and you could have just withdrawn because you didn't feel like playing. You withdraw during an event because you're actually injured. So that did worry me a little bit, but I think we can put those aside. He played well last week. He's playing well at this golf tournament. Robert McIntyre was out to the early lead. I was victory lapping that one like a champ, that's for sure. Either way, though, he's a hard course specialist, and this track certainly qualifies as that. Chris Kirk played his ass off today. Hopefully you guys have some exposure there. He's playing in the afternoon. Probably worth a few looks tomorrow, too. Kevin Knott, -2, played a solid round. From a skill set perspective, because he's getting that extra rollout, I do like his chances this week. So we'll have him for tomorrow. I don't have Bubba for 4-round stuff, but he can get super hot in a hurry. He can also make a few eagles on the long holes. So I like his chances to maybe take it low. Patrick Reed, he looked pretty solid today. I think he's worth a few looks. Same thing with Siwoo Kim. Obviously, Siwoo Kim not quite as good as Patrick Reed, but from a pedigree perspective, I think we'd all prefer Siwoo Kim over Patrick Reed. Davis Riley was out to a lead early. He was playing some solid golf, also gets the favorable conditions. Tom Hoge, same story, right? Also gets the PM wave. He shot -4. Kevin Streelman is at 1 over. He was at 1 under at one point towards the end of his round, made a double bogey. That was a little bit ugly. I mean, there's another word for it. It was a gnarly double bogey towards the end. But in terms of the ball striking, it was there. Thomas Peters is a high upside play, kind of similar to a Bubba Watson, where he has that eagle equity, which at a low scoring showdown event like we're going to have tomorrow, making eagles could really be what separates you and makes you an optimal play. Cameron Davis, I like his upside. I'm playing in the positive wave. Same thing with Garrett Higo. Both of them are extremely high birdie or better percentage players. Stuart Sink at -1. He was also playing some solid golf. Gets the favorable conditions. Mackenzie Hughes and Matt Jones. Now, they did not play good golf. I mean, Matt Jones +3, Mackenzie Hughes +7. Both of them in my player pool too, so that did not feel good. But maybe they can bounce back tomorrow, right? They're cheap. They get the favorable conditions. And I liked them going into the week for a reason. They had good recent form, and they were a good course fit. So don't want to abandon ship just after one round. Troy Merritt, just an average play, but super cheap. Towards the bottom of the board, I could see it. He's also only +3, so not like he played atrocious golf. Lanto Griffin, he was even par until, I believe, his 16th hole. Also made a late double bogey, but the ball striking was there. He's good in difficult conditions. He always shows up in Texas, which usually is when we have super windy conditions. So perhaps there's something there. Last week at the Byron Nelson, also played some solid golf. Ryan Fox, we played for 4-round stuff. I like him. He's at even par. Also a little bit of a hard course specialist. When we've seen him have success on the DP World Tour, it's usually been at difficult tracks. And that's it for the player pool, guys. So what we'll do now is we'll hop over to Draftkings, do a little bit of strategy talk, and then hop out of here. If there are any questions you have, though, feel free to go ahead and put them down in chat. We will touch on them before we hop on out of here as well. So I'm going to bring up the contest. I didn't have that up on my end. So we can talk through a little bit of lineup construction. And we'll also touch on a few questions before we get into it. So 1 second here. Let's get to the questions. So Catch Me If You Can says, Hatton is happy because everyone else is pissed off like he usually is. That could definitely be it. I would tend to agree with you there. Anton says, Rory, Xander, Zalatoris, Cam Smith will be good in the afternoon. Yeah, I agree. I like all 4 of them. The only one I'm not playing out of them is Rory, just because of ownership. I expect him to be maybe 40, 50% owned tomorrow. Whereas guys like a Zalatoris, Cam Smith, even a Jordan Spieth, for example, are going to be a little bit lower owned. So that's the only problem I have with a Rory McIlroy, but nothing against the play. In terms of the skill set, it makes a lot of sense. What's going on, Forbes? You missed me on the links today. I agree. Had to watch Tiger Woods, though. Sam Ergel says Finau. I have Finau in the pool. I like him. The ball striking was decent. Shot 1 under par. Gets the favorable conditions. Anson says Rory is a top play tomorrow. So, yeah, you can play him. I have no problem against it. Catch Me McCann says, oh shit, his brother's here again. Yeah, he's been here for a few streams now, and yeah, he's caused some ruckus, that's for sure. Especially down in the Discord too. He was down in there today causing a little bit of a ruckus. And Sam Ergel says, I'm loading up on Hovland and Cam Smith. I love the Cam Smith call. I love the Hovland call. Hell, I love anybody in that 9 and 8K range that's playing in the PM, pretty much all of them. So I would have to agree with you there. So, all right, let me go ahead and share my screen. We'll hop into the DraftKings lineups and we'll make a few together. So, all right, so let's go through a GPP pool. So we're going to make a large field GPP contest. In fact, for this type of contest, right, where you have 17,000 entries, 100,000 to first, a third of the entire payout is going to the first person that finished in first place. That's when you have to worry about duplicating. Now, if you're playing in a flat payout structure where, first place is maybe 25 grand, second place is 20 or 15 grand, not something where it's like 100K to first and then 25K to second. Those type of contests, you can get away with duping. Right? If you're duped with 1 to 2 people, your payout's only going to change 15 to 20% at most of the times, right? It can be a little bit more at times too. Whereas in this type of contest, if you duplicate with just one person in first place, let alone more, right? If it's just with one person in first place, your payout goes from 100K down to right around 65K, or sometimes even less than that, depending on how big the drop off is. That's why not duplicating yourself is important. And I got asked that question actually just the last time I did one of these streams is, why is it so bad if you duplicate, right? You're still winning first place. It's because your expected value when you win is significantly lower. And if you were to do that exact same, let's call it a simulation, right, over and over and over again, that completely kills your ROI. Whereas in a flat payout structure, right, if you were just duplicated with one person, first place was 25K, second place was 15K, right, your payout goes from 25K down to 20K, right? So it's a much lower percentage change than it would be in the other circumstance, right? So just understand that it does depend on what kind of contest you're in. So when we're entering a contest for this large field contest, right, that has so much of the player pool to first, we're going to make damn sure we're not duplicating with other people. So best way to do that is to either take guys that aren't going to be chalk or to leave some salary on the table, ideally both. So let's go ahead and show you what that looks like. So up top, like I said, I like the guys playing in the PM. I love Jordan Spieth, love Cam Smith. We could probably even fit in Victor Hovland. So let's be extremely aggressive about this. Take 3 guys in the 9K range. Take somebody here in the 8K. Let's go with a Sam Burns. I like his upside. And we still have 71.5 remaining. We still have plenty of salary to work with. So in terms of our last 2 men in, let's see. I like Mito, right? Mito's playing in the afternoon. We have $6,900. And we can wrap it off with somebody like a Lucas Herbert if you wanted to, right? So in this type of lineup, now you're not leaving any salary on the table, which would be, I'd say, not ideal. But because we're not taking a Rory McIlroy, you can probably get away with it. Now, if you were trying to ensure that you're 100% going to be unique, just go down to $6,700. Take somebody that you know is playing in the afternoon wave, for example, a Mackenzie Hughes. And this lineup will 100% be unique for that contest. So it's kind of dependent on the players that you're taking. Now, if you were taking a really unique set of lineups and you wanted to still take somebody like a Rory McIlroy, you can make that work too, right? So if you're going to take a Rory McIlroy, you need to leave salary on the table, and you also need to pivot. So with this type of lineup, we have Mackenzie Hughes, who should be relatively low owned. And I'm going to go down to $6,900, maybe even $6,800. And we're going to take Cameron Davis. So in this lineup, we have $400 left on the table. We have 4 extremely chalky players. One of them who's going to be in the 40 to 50% owned range, 20%, probably 15% on Hovland, right? 10 to 15% on a Sam Burns. You're talking about maybe 100% combined ownership just on these 4 players alone. But because we're leaving salary on the table, we're taking somebody that's low owned like a Cam Davis and somebody like a Mackenzie Hughes. This lineup will also be unique. Obviously, the opportunity cost here is the extra salary that we have to leave on the table. Also, the fact that we have to pivot off of some of the plays that we liked a little bit more. So that's my thought process when making a large field GPP type of lineup. Now let's talk about the more of a flat payout structure, right? For maybe a single entry, a smaller field type of GPP, a smaller dollar type of GPP. They're usually structured in that manner. And when I'm doing so, like I said, I don't mind duplicating. So in those, I think Rory McIlroy is pretty much a must play. You're playing in cash, same story. I think he needs to be in pretty much every lineup you're making. In terms of a second man in, right, I think going to Victor Hovland makes sense. I think he's one of my favorite plays out here for round 2. In terms of a 8K option, Will Zalatoris, right, we don't have to worry about ownership because we're playing in this smaller field contest. If we duplicate to 1 to 2 people, it's not the end of the world. Here in the 8K range, I love Tony Finau. We talked about him quite a bit. Towards the middle of the 7K, let's go to Trell Henn. I like how he's trending at this point. I like the skill set. And at 7,300, let's go with Bobby McIntyre. Now, we still have a Rory McIlroy. We still have an extremely chalky Will Zalatoris here, but we don't have to leave salary on the table, right? It's just, this is for a completely different type of contest where you're not dealing with 17,000 other entries. You're probably dealing with the 100 to 500 entry range. So just understand that the thought process behind making lineups, whether it's for 4-round, whether it's for showdown lineups, changes pretty drastically depending on your contest selection. So the player pool won't change, right? The guys that you're actually selecting from, but how you actually put those lineups together should be changing based on your lineup. Shouldn't say lineup, your contest selection. And now lastly, let's do the cash lineup, which should be super easy. All guys playing in the afternoon wave, all guys that are going to be relatively chalky. So it's going to be Zalatoris and Rory McIlroy. They're the clear number 1 and 2 options there. In terms of other guys to go to, I mean, Max Homa is going to be an extremely popular play. I think he makes quite a bit of sense. Tony Finau is a great pick for this type of format. Go with Xander Schauffele. I expect him to be relatively chalky. And for a last man in, Mito Pereira, right? Just make it easy. Our cheapest player is $7,400. Our most expensive is $9,700. So this is a relatively balanced lineup. It doesn't look all that different than the lineup we actually just made for the, again, single entry or 2 to 3 max type of tournament. But that should be the case, right? Your cash lineups should just be your highest projected lineups. You shouldn't be worrying about game theory. And that's a very similar strategy to what I use in those 2 to 3 maxes. So that's all I've got here. We'll catch up on the questions before we hop on out of here. We got Anton saying for prize picks, Cam Smith at 71 looks too good. At 71, so we got to shoot a +1. I'll have to actually run the numbers for you. I'm going to be doing the prize picks video actually as soon as we hop out of here. But I would imagine my projections would have them at somewhere in the 70 range. Right? Maybe something like 70.2, 70.3. I'll have to run the numbers. I'll have to let you know. But it would make sense. I would definitely side towards the under no matter what. I'm not sure it would be a lock, though. We'll have to double check on that. Paul says, you're the GOAT. Glad you stopped by. Glad you enjoyed it. Hopefully we can win some money tomorrow, guys. Neil says, hello, everybody. What is going on, Neil? And Starlord for a last question says, so in a single entry, would you still fade Rory? So no, yeah, that's kind of what I was going with towards the end there. I don't think it's necessary because the only reason you fade players that are good plays, and Rory McIlroy is a great play, right? He's my highest projected play for tomorrow per my projections, is if you're in a large field contest and you don't feel like duplicating with other people and you feel like just being able to play a lot of other people, right? Because when you play somebody like a Rory McIlroy, who's going to be 40 to 50% owned, you realistically need to be playing at least 65, maybe even 70% tomorrow, right? And that 70% exposure could turn into about 4 or 5 other players, right? You could take a Sam Burns, a Jordan Spieth, you could take a Xander Schauffele, a lot of those guys in the 9K range, and you could play like 3 to 4 people with those 70% of your lineups rather than a Rory McIlroy, right? So that's why when you're playing in these large field contests, you consider fading somebody like a Rory, right? So that you can do something like that. Now, if you're in a single entry or 2 to 3 max, you don't nearly have that same type of utility, right? There's no reason to, because if you're duplicating with 5, maybe even 10 times less people. So it's dependent on the contest. I would not fade him. I think he makes a lot of sense there. Long way to answer your question. And Neil says, what do you set your range of outcomes to? I don't use that for a optimizer. I have my own optimizer made. I don't do that in terms of an optimizer. I know a lot of other people will do that. They'll set like randomness, that type of thing in their optimizer. I don't do that, right? I build lineups. I hand pick them. I usually generate about 1,500 lineups, and then I'll go by hand picking out the ones I actually want to enter. So that's my process. But if you're going to do randomness, I mean, I've never been a fan of it. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary. I know pros out there will do it to generate lineups, but you should be able to tinker with it yourself, right? If you want to get more or less of a player, then do that yourself, right? Just tinker with the projections and whatnot. So that's my take on that, guys. Hopefully that was a solid preview for y'all. If you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and put them down in the chat. We will be doing the same thing tomorrow night. That'll be right around 8:30 to 9 p.m. Eastern time for rounds 3. Also the same thing for round 4. So look forward to that. If you haven't already hit the like button, would appreciate if you do that before you hop on out of here. And also make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any of those streams to come. Let's get this cash tomorrow, guys. And hopefully we can get a bunch of these guys through the cut.